What does caffeine do for you pre-workout?
Well, it's just a little bit of a dopamine reuptake inhibitor. The thing that makes caffeine special though is what it does with adenosine.
Getting rid of the adenosine, it makes you lose the whole like fatigue feeling, the tired feeling, because that's like what makes you tired, like feel tired.
And it's like you almost have like this auditorium and it's completely empty. And then right when you wake up, the doors open and you just have people just slowly walking through and filling up the seats. And that's like adenosine. And when it's full, you're gonna fall asleep. And so that's kind of like your clock is like, how long have I been awake? So caffeine like gets up, breaks into the room, takes all the chairs, shoves everybody out, but they don't go anywhere, right? They're still in the room. So when caffeine leaves, they all sit back down. That's why you get that like caffeine crash. It's like all of a sudden your body's like, whoa, we're more fatigued than we thought we were.
Intramuscular?
Mm-hmm.
Or it doesn't matter too much?
Or intraocular.
Take it into the eyeball?
yeah, definitely. No, yeah, I just hit your delt or whatever.
The hard part sometimes about taking a shot is trying to find a free location that hasn't been previously hit by something.
It's a problem with doing this for too long.
Well, that's the reason why you got to train shoulders. You need to build more real estate to take your shots.
Yeah, just build those rear delts.
Yeah,
you're talking about how big my quads are. Why do you think that is?
You guys ever mess with like heating this stuff up? So sometimes the shots kind of hurt, or you don't care?
I run it under hot water sometimes, but also just kind of like deal with it.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
Don't try this at home or at your gym. There you go. Get all secrets to bodybuilding. It's how you get big. Everybody wanted to know. You just take shots of stuff and you get huge.
You don't ask questions and
you don't even need to eat properly or train or lift. Now I'm just gonna sit down.
Yeah, we're gonna go take a nap now.
Yeah, we're gonna get huge.
Which one is this for me? The
Well, I think I was just gonna say that. Let's switch it to a more creatine-based warm-up.
Okay.
Just for the sake of being a little quicker, let's get intense and then.
Okay, so like not extended effort, like high oxygen, long rest, but like
high intensity.
High volition. So like medicine ball throws or like jumps, something like that. Really short sprints with long rest.
Stuff that unlabeled bottle.
Oh yeah, that's how you know it's good stuff.
What you guys doing here?
Oh, just doing a little dance ritual. Yep, just getting a little crossing over.
A lot of crossbody stuff, so just kind of like, what would you, well, this is actually my first time doing these because I asked him what these were because he put them in the program, but I've seen him and Ben Pollock do them. And I have to imagine, like, and correct me if I'm wrong, what you're going for, but it's like, like isometrically contracting the hamstrings and the glutes to like hold position, but then being okay with rotation of the upper body and like a violent movement just to wake everything up. Because it's like integrating that like staying tight and isometric contraction with like actually mobility.
Loosening up the posterior ribs and yep, all that. Let's do a couple bike sprints with this and maybe a med ball throw if there's a med ball.
Jake, does this give you a little diagnostic? You guys are training together. If you're watching him or he's watching you, you guys get to see like the tightness and then say, hey, like, let's make sure we address.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yep, it's all plays into it a lot. Even the way like, it's like, how hard he's breathing during training or how long it takes to control breathing, after doing something hard. Like arousal curves.
I always have in my.
You've been doing a pulse ox for a year.
Yeah. Since the Tom Platz thing.
Yeah.
But
always measuring.
Oh yeah. Well, you did. How much did you squat? How many reps?
525 for 20 reps. So a little shorter than Tom, but almost got there. That shit. We were talking about it the other day. Like that was harder than any powerlifting prep I've ever done. That shit was brutal, man. But yeah, we tracked that stuff, and it's just, that was one of the biggest like points of progress I noticed going into this meet prep compared to any other one. Because like anytime I would hit a heavy squat, In previous preps, it's like I hit it and I have to like sit and be like, holy fuck, I gotta come down. Like I'm breathing super hard, dying, you know, and it's like, it takes me 30 minutes to like move on to the rest of my workout. Now it's like I would hit a heavy squat and be like, I'm cool, I'm having a conversation. Just, I brought my heart rate down immediately, brought the pulse ox back up, and it's like, I feel great. So that's huge progress in and of itself, so.
So you're doing a lot of stuff that like maybe powerlifters wouldn't traditionally do.
Absolutely, 100%. Like, just.
I think maybe the old school powerlifters might have.
Yeah, honestly, because there was.
In good shape too, like Kazmaier and those guys, they could breathe.
That's a huge thing that like you notice, because like there's even in like the West Side methodologies, there's such an attention to detail paid to like GPP and just being in shape.
I saw Louis all the time talking to people about getting on the sled and doing some sprints on the bike, and no one ever listened to the old man. You know? He would annoy the fuck out of you. You make it crazy. How did it happen where you guys are? Seems like you got pretty sophisticated programming going on.
I've always been into it quite a bit. I met Joe at the Showdown almost 3 years ago. We were just kind of talking because we were in each other's weight classes, and then he had that tricep thing going on, and I was like, hey, you know, I think I can help, but it'll be.
Well, even before that, he paid for a consultation with me, and we ended up like on the phone for like 2.5 hours. Just talking about shit, because I was like, he was asking me just advice and perspective, and I was like, oh, I don't know that that's gonna work, and then he's like, well, actually I think it is, and he explained why, and I'm like, fuck, that actually makes sense. And we just kept going back and forth, and then never really stopped talking after that. His perspective is just so much different than mine, or was so much different than mine. And it's like, I've always been really all in, but not to like the refined degree that Jake has been, because like I was much more of the traditional meathead like 3 years ago, where it was just like push hard all the time. Determination and grit is gonna get you through anything. But then talking to him and learning from him, it's the combination of that plus the application of like science and honestly the basic understanding of like biology and knowing how to work with it to make you better. I feel like a new lifter. I feel like I'm getting noob gains after like 15 years of competing. Because my first competition was in 2007. I hit that 62-pound total PR like a week ago. Huge total PR with not a lot, like on a very relaxed day, like not a super hard peak, not a super hard training cycle going into it. And it's like, I have no idea where the top end is now, because I'm like exploring avenues that I never thought were even there before, or I couldn't even see before.
It's great having these guys in here. A bunch of animals. I really love how methodical they are with everything. They got a little bit of a protocol or ritual for each thing. Look how long they're taking with their warm-up. But the warm-up is like actually a huge part of their just workout system and plan, helping to get in better shape, helping stabilize, helping with some mobility.
Getting back on the leg training right now, just because you got that.
Yeah, I pull the sled a lot. It's like kind of my favorite thing to do, so I do that a bunch. I'll do the belt squat, shit like that here and there.
Yeah. We're all really good at being addicted to stuff, even when it is beneficial. The whole purpose of like my developmental block, like the off season that I'm in now, is literally like tricep strength and development, hamstring strength and development, and like rear delts, just hypertrophy, because I don't have any rear delts, but that's it. So big bench, big deadlift. I got my squat, so it's like, let's just keep pushing those now that I'm healthy. So
they make all these machines that adjust the cam and everything for you, which is sick, and I have a bunch of them over there. I like them a lot. But it really kind of mimics a band on there, you know?
Exactly, yep.
Let me hop it on. Who's got crazy lockout powers? Michael Hearn.
Yeah.
Jesus, man.
That's one guy that I've never met. I've actually never.
A lot of his lifts, I mean, he'll get the elbows kind of out, and he'll look stuck, and he's just like,
jeez. I don't know anything about like his training methodology, but like he looks the way that he does. He's been doing it as long as he fucking has. He's got to be able to like push into that gritty territory and be able to finish a rep. So it makes sense.
He also trains a little opposite than what you hear most people do. When he's getting ready, when he's getting really, really lean, he does a lot less reps.
Yeah.
He'll train heavier, but he'll always ends up like, he'll end up like 10 reps behind. So he can do 405 for a single when he's lean, whereas he can do 405 for like 10 when he's a little fluffier.
Interesting.
He's just like, I always try to keep that rule. It's just interesting the way that people pick up these.
And
like, there's not a science necessarily, but like.
No, it does make sense. It's like if you wanted to have this like really hard, like lean look, you really want to develop those type 2 fibers, right? Like you want to get the heavy training. That's where you get that nice like hard grainy look.
Yeah, and that's like where he's lived for so much of his life, like as a power builder, you know, because he's not just a super, like a natural bodybuilder who's like fucking jacked. He's strong. He's very strong. So
1, 2, 3, release. There you go. Yep. Press down all the way through. Yep. Last one. Easy weight.
I got 75 seconds, and I'm gonna do that again. And 7 sets with 75-second rest. It's like.
I think what's great about stuff like that is that you always get a PR whenever you pick something weird.
Yeah.
You know, I'm gonna do 9 reps of seated overhead press.
With
Yeah.
a 3-4
9 rep
slot.
PR.
Never done 9 reps before, so it's something. I want to get my bench back up to like 540, and that's what this whole 6 months is gonna be devoted to.
1, 2, 3, up. Wrist is on this side of your elbows, and your wrist needs to be on this side of your elbows.
A little flary.
Yeah, like just a bit, like you're tired probably, so you're kind of hanging there.
Yeah.
And for some reason, the body thinks that's a better position.
Yeah,
but
for
it's
whatever reason.
fucking harder.
Yeah. I'm probably gonna knock that to a plate and a quarter.
Yeah.
Just to finish her out.
Quality reps.
Yeah. Because again, this is my first day back, so
Yeah.
I'm very okay
Super
with
under
it.
condition.
I'll mess with this.
Yeah. You're probably good for it.
You still got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just take a little methyltren, you can do it.
That'll get me right to the top, right?
Yeah, I think that's the secret.
And then have a fucking heart attack the next time you go run.
That's when you know like things are going like not so great, is when you need something like that to bench 185.
That's so true.
It's the same thing with running. Like I'm fucking with all these shoes and stuff, and I'm like,
Yeah, if I need this just to perform, it's like precision windows this big right now.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, I should probably be running more in those.
Yeah. I love these things, dude.
These things are great.
Do you struggle with like, because I'm sure you have like, got a ton of bone density from lifting. Is that made running hard?
It's made it hard, and I haven't lost a pound.
Oh yeah.
Oh God. Yeah.
I'm like the same weight.
Yeah, I believe
I
it.
was like 235 the other day. I was like, Jesus Christ.
It's a lot of impact over 26 miles.
Yeah, it is. Because you know you're gonna get like a little euphoric from running it, right?
Oh yeah.
And like being that heavy, you get a lot of calcium in your blood, you know?
Right.
Yeah, you gotta be careful with that. I mean, I'm sure that's something you're already thinking about, but yeah.
Yeah, Andy's been helping me, and
Oh, good.
Actually, we've gone down a rabbit hole. We've even talked as much about like headphones and stuff. Like they supposedly can deplete your calcium.
Absolutely.
It's
Yeah.
like I don't need any more help with that.
Like for someone coming from where you were to marathon running, you have all sorts of things that no one else would ever have to deal with. So you can't train like a normal marathon runner. It's like, for you, honestly, it's like, what, like maybe a micro dose of like LSD and like GW and some carnitine on the day is like the way to go.
I was just talking to Chris before he left for Phoenix this morning. about how I was using psilocybin as a PED.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, for my deadlifts.
Yep, come on. Some of this has to do with like how like wide you are. It makes it tough for a guy who's 5'5". It makes it tough for a guy that's this wide to really bring his elbow like way into the side. It starts to be uncomfortable and weird. I think, do you bench any differently when your wraps are on? Do you think?
Probably, yeah.
Honestly, I think right now for him, it might actually be a lot to do with your ribs too.
Yeah.
From flying and just being compacted. Have you ever done rib tacking? Has Andy done that to you? That's like the perfect thing to do. Open up, yeah. It's like you're kind of just stuck in, like if you ever jump in like a cold bath, you're like, ugh. It's like that's kind of where you're stuck, right?
Moved a cumulative like 2,060 pounds a week ago. Got on a plane, got on another plane. So
Yeah.
I don't know, but yeah, it makes sense. It doesn't feel like as good as it could, but it's also like the first day back, so it's like not surprised. So
I'm
much
noticing like with your elbow.
Yeah, I'm doing
Like when I cued you to go in more, then you put it into your wrist.
Yeah.
And now you're like
See,
I always say, you're trying to throw a punch like this.
Yeah.
You know where it'd be better if you connected.
Yeah.
Stacked.
And I'm honestly, I'm like kind of playing a little bit because like this is why I talked to him a week ago. I want to incorporate, you know, the McDonald's bench bar where it's got that camber.
Yeah.
I think I get more benefit in like a close grip sense from that just based on my width. Because with this, I'm like close grip. And even though I'm like, there's a lot of arm flexion, I'm still kind of like blocking the entire range of motion just because I'm so thick. But then by getting the bench bar, I can actually like go past it and keep that.
Grip is inside your shoulder, so you're a little like handcuffed in there.
Yeah.
Mark Bell taking his first bench attempt in 12 years. Got to get this to stay on the meet.
Masters 8 squat record.
Nice.
There you go, dude. There you go, dude.
Oh, I missed a rep. Or it's 2 reps. I did 4 on that. 1, 2, 3 up. Release. Yep. There you go. Whenever I did close grip in training, people are always like, that's not close grip.
Right, yeah.
But I normally,
Like you need your freaking hands.
well, I normally would train out here, and then for me it was a closer grip. I would just go here,
Yeah.
and like that's not close grip, but it always made a big difference for me.
Why does it matter what you think close grip is? It's close grip for me.
Yeah,
The bar is constant. The bar never changes. Every individual that gets under the bar, we all fucking are built different, so.
yeah. And some of the bigger guys that we had over the years, weighing 280, 290, for them to do close grip was like they're just gonna shatter their elbows.
Seriously, because they're at like this angle.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
So of all the people you've interviewed over the last, I don't know how many years it's been now, like what, 10 years? Do you have any of like, do you have like a couple of them where you're like, that was a really fucking cool podcast? That just like really stood out?
There's some people that are really, really sharp, like really, really smart. And then there's people that are like entertaining.
Yeah.
And then there's people that are like a little crossover. Then every once in a while you get someone that's just like flat out like fun and entertaining and just silly and like
joy to be
You
around.
just kinda-
type thing.
yeah, make
Makes a
everybody
fun podcast.
like what comes to mind is my friend Tom File. Tom is a former bodybuilder, has done some powerlifting and stuff. If he was here right now, he would be telling you guys story after story after story, and we'd all be laughing our asses off, So there's people like that. They're not like exceptional in society because they don't have 800,000 followers or whatever, but they're extraordinary people and they're just fun to be around. So there's been a lot
Met
of
like a lot of really cool people.
yeah.
That's probably why you have so many stories yourself, because all the people that you've interacted with. Like,
It's like it's a cool job.
yeah, exactly. So,
Yeah, selfishly, it's just helped me a lot.
yeah.
Have you ever had any where you thought they were going to be like really fun to have, and you're like, dude, that's kind of a drag?
There's been some people who've just been real short, with their like answer or their thing.
He's like pulling stuff.
There's also been people that have had like a little bit of a shtick, and that's just rough.
Like what do you mean by that?
They just like if I said, hey, you know, what do you like to take before you work out? And you're like, you just rattle off this thing, and then you keep referencing that it's like in your book or something.
Yeah.
Not even not even necessarily just a sales pitch, but like they just have this thing that they've been talking about for so long.
It's like the one thing they can talk about.
There's nothing else behind it anymore, you know?
Like some people with morning sunlight, or like doing now cold baths are a big one now, right? It's like kind of people hop on these bandwagons of like, do this every day.
You're hoping that you get something more conversational out of it, I guess is what I'm talking about.
More substance rather than just like the same little, I don't want to say platitude, but like platitude, the thing that they always refer this on all their posts. It's like, take my supplement, and then it's like I'm on a podcast, like, well, you know what's great for that? My supplement. And it's like, okay, cool, good,
Like,
got it.
We get it.
Yeah.
Here we go. 3 up. Yep. Nice. That set falls right into the category of lift it perfectly or lift it whatever way you can.
Yep. That's how it goes.
He's getting tired. He's like, I'm just going to get through this. And
Yeah.
he just fucking sped his way through it.
You know, sometimes work is work.
I got one more.
It is, yeah. He did it.
You got to do what you got to do sometimes.
There's 2 things that are hard to interview. When someone's way too short and when someone goes way too long.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
Just like start their own little tangent and.
Well, think about like when we were talking to that particular individual going into the last meet, how it's like this topic, then this topic, then this, then this, then this, and it's like, how did we even get here?
Yeah, it's like just going all over the place.
Yeah.
It's tough, you know, like you ask someone a simple question of like, you know, how would you help an obese person lose weight? It's like, man, this is like gonna take a while, right? And so you have to cover so many different subjects. By the end of it, you may have talked for like 40 minutes.
For one question.
And there wasn't back and forth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's nicer when there's back and forth. You'd have to say, well, you know, is this person you're talking about, are they sleeping well? Are they, you know, you have to kind of...
Yeah, because you can't just give an answer without any info too.
You need a lot
If you
more.
want a hypothetical situation, it's like, let's get into it.
Yeah, you need a lot more information.
Here you go, Mark. Get that rep back. There you go.
Come on, finish. There you go. Still got it.
Yeah. Yeah, when I get stuck and it's not too dangerous, I like to actually like stay there a little bit.
Feel it, yeah.
And then try to squeeze through it.
Yeah, it's a little time under tension.
It's obviously harder to do with like the heavier stuff, but
Do you have to like have a significantly different diet because you came from powerlifting first? Like you made all these like very specific changes to become a very elite powerlifter, right? Like you obviously have a very strong spine, a lot of LTP adaptations, and now to come from that, you know, to marathon, and you mentioned like you're not losing weight. It's like, you know, how do you address that, right? It's like you obviously can't do the typical, like, you know, marathon diet, marathon training, marathon.
I think a big problem for some marathoners and some reason some of the people get into that is they probably aren't big on eating. Probably the typical guy that forgets to eat sometimes.
Yeah.
You ever run into someone like that? They're like, oh my God, it's 3 o'clock. I haven't eaten anything. You're like, all I think about all day is food.
I just had a conversation with somebody at the gym where it's like, oh, is protein intake like really important for me? They're training for an endurance event, and I'm like, yeah, dude. It's more important probably.
It's like think about how much glucocorticoids are going on in a fasted state, right?
Yeah, so for me, I mean, in powerlifting, I even utilize some low carb here and there in between contests, dump water weight and things like that. But the short answer is I try to eat carbs as frequently as I think I need them. So I have rice, potatoes, a little bit from like some protein bar things that I have. They're like honey, peanut butter bar deals. Yeah, potatoes, rice, shit like that. And probably 200-300 grams of carbs. Probably nothing crazy.
Yeah, so
Maybe on some days though, it might be like way up, might be like 600.
sure, yeah.
Depending on the need, I'm sure.
I guess for you too, like, would you want to be lighter in running this marathon? Like, is that part of the goal, or it's just like, hey, I just want to get this done, doesn't, you know, whatever.
It was a little bit part of this, but the extra running is still new for me. So I think I was just letting my body do what it needed to do. You know, it's like, I think I need more food.
All right, let's go, Joe.
1, 2, 3, up. There you go, yep. Up and back just a bit. Yep, there we go, that's it, yep. Nice, yep, there we go. Lock it out strong. Good.
You want another one here?
That's some wild tricep work, I'm good.
Yeah, this guy has me hitting some type of tricep either directly or indirectly 4 times a week right now, so it's gonna be fun. If I don't bench 6, I'll burn your house down. I don't know.
Yeah.
Fucking know.
I think that's what anybody would say there. best friends.
I would, you know, obviously you guys are thinking about it, but I would just keep the elbows in mind and,
Absolutely.
you know, maybe wear straps on days where you're pulling or
Yeah.
whatever you can to kind of mitigate that area from blowing up.
That's generally what I do anyway, just because I'm hook grip now. And it's like, I'll do like 1 set with hook and just hold it. And then anything beyond that, it's like always strapped just because I got the permanent bruises on my thumbs and it's like, I can't push those. So yeah, but it happens.
Took you maybe like a year to get used to it?
Something like that, yeah.
That's what most people say, it takes about a year.
Yeah, and it's just like, it never doesn't hurt. It's like knee wraps or gear, you know? It's like, there's always that pressure and like uncomfortable feeling. You just get to a point where it doesn't matter.
Can you show us a hook grip right now real quick?
Yeah,
You
for
got
sure.
enough juice in here for that?
Yeah.
So maybe just throw a plate on there.
Yeah.
We'll just chuck this bar on the ground.
So hook, the way that I do it, because I have like really, really thick palms, but really stubby fingers.
Got some meaty paws right there.
Yeah, exactly. So the way that I do it, it's kind of exaggerated. Like, I don't think everybody would need to do it this way, but this is what works for me. So I kind of like just let my arms hang and I go down. I actually hook grip on the smooth because it avoids the tear.
Do
like,
you
I'm not gonna
chalk anything differently or anything like that?
Yeah, big time. So when I'm specifically if I'm on the smooth, it's like you want to get a really good layer of chalk everywhere, but I'm gonna hit the areas that you like absolutely need. But one thing that you really, really want to focus on is just kind of like covering the thumb in an entire like coating of it, even on your thumbnail. Because this way, when you wrap around, what I do is I put my index finger and my middle finger on top of my thumb itself. And this is what creates that hook. That's what creates the lock. So, but I'm just gonna do that one hand.
I interrupted you for a second too. You were saying about your skin like maybe peeling or something and how you try to avoid that.
Because a lot of people just think when they're doing mixed grip, you want like all of the covering on the knurling just for as much friction as possible. But with hook, you don't really need that friction because you create like that self-locking hook itself. So in order to avoid the thumb tearing, because I'm sure everybody's seen those like nasty hook grip tears where it like pulls up the entire thing, I hook on the smooth. So I go down, basically go 2 fingers in onto the smooth. And then when I set my hook, I internally rotate my shoulders to set it, because this allows me to lay as much of the thumb across the bar as possible. Then I reach with my middle finger, find the thumbnail right there, reach with my index finger, find the thumb knuckle, lock it in, middle finger, index finger on the knuckle, lock it in, and then this is my hook. This is all it is. Obviously you want to squeeze each, like your pinky, your ring finger, and everything individually, but the biggest thing to focus on is squeezing the middle finger and the index finger, because as long as you keep that locked in, it's not going to go anywhere. And that's it. And it's just like hook grip. Hook grip is a grip demanding thing. You still have to have good grip, but it's really, with this specifically, it's really, really about the individual finger strength. Because if you can get enough tension on the index and middle finger to lock that hook in, you're never gonna drop anything.
Do anything specific for your grip?
Me personally, I like banded pull-ups. Have you ever done that, where it's not like you're doing a pull-up on a band, like you're grabbing it, because that forces you to really crush and squeeze, and that really hits that individual finger strength. So that always really helps me, just kind of old wrestling exercise, you know, or like the rice bucket, and just twisting just for the actual finger strength, not like the hand crushing strength, but like the individual ones.
Anything in your deadlift training, like where like if you're doing like RDLs or if you're just warming up for deadlifts, do you practice just like double overhand without a hook grip or anything special to work your grip?
Not really. The biggest thing that I would generally recommend for someone who's trying to get into hook is literally just building endurance. Like doing something to address the individual fingers, like the banded pull-ups, or maybe even like 2-finger pull-ups, or just when you're doing like any pulling movement, like maybe like leave the pinky out of it or leave the index finger out of it and just like address stuff individually. But with the actual deadlift, best thing I've done for it is simply holding a heavy hook grip, like the last rep of my working weight, just for as long as I can with hook grip. Just training like specifically in that context to build the hook endurance.
But and then your sumo stance is a little different than what I see a lot of people do. I know Ed Cohn kind of used the hybrid sumo pull.
And I spoke with Ed about my sumo. That's where like I was getting a lot of help from a lot of really accomplished like sumo pullers. But then when I actually talked to Ed and he explained to me like how he set his hips in, because I don't know if you've seen my setup, but when it literally looks like a carbon copy of Ed's, because I have it's a moderately close stance, but when I grab and set my hook, I set the hook and then I do the wiggle in. And then this wiggle, it kind of like, it helps me bring my hips forward, do the whole open the tank cue, and allow my pelvis to get underneath me and me to actually use my quads to push the floor away from me, rather than the more traditional sumo approach, where it's very much about like abduction of the hips and like levering yourself under it. I'm kind of like wiggling myself under it and then leg pressing the ground away from me. So,
it's like less hip extension.
Yeah, less hip extension, more like knee extension, but yeah.
And the great Ed Cohn, you know, he deadlifted 901 and 220. He had the all-time record, I think, in 198 for a little while as well.
On a power bar too.
Yeah, on just a regular, regular stiff bar like this. But he also told me that he could make 765 pounds hover just by wedging himself under the bar. So he would get himself locked in so tight, the weight would just float a little bit off the ground before he ever really started to really throw a lot of force into it. It's fucking wild.
Exactly, and that's, we did that, Stan had that rhino cage exhibition at the Olympia, and Ed he hung around for like an extra like 45 minutes, hour, dude, and he helped me so much. And just because he and I, like honestly, he and I are built incredibly similarly. Like I don't have the giant meat paws he has, but he just based on like skeleton wise, like we're very similar, and he just kind of like really helped me with it. And it's big reason that I came back, like not only with the grip stuff that Jake and I did due to the nerve damage, but just his positioning help like made such a huge difference for me. So it's cool.
Great.
Yeah. Live, learn, pass on, you know, that's the whole deal.
Yeah, so some of the goal was to lose weight, but as I started to run more and more, it just got a little bit away from me. I think still though, there's some like dysregulation that kind of happens with me. And I don't know if it's like strictly food or water or necessarily what it is, but if I run like 10 miles or more, I'll be heavy for like the next 2-3 days.
That makes sense, right?
And sometimes it does have to do with the food intake, which I definitely have paid attention to, but it also seems to be like highly like water dependent.
Like all the adaptations you made early on in life, right? It's like you're probably a lot better at storing like in that cross-sectional area, right? You have like really cool substrate growth interaction. And you can damage yourself more than every other marathon runner can. Like you intentionally made yourself that way. Right. So now it's like cool. There's more glucocorticoids running in your body, right? Like every time you do anything, there's going to be like more cortisol or more amino acid breakdown and whatever. So it makes sense, right? It's like you're gonna be heavy after a training session like that. Well, the other guy isn't, because they literally aren't strong enough. They don't, like epigenetics would be their weak link, right? If they wanted to get stronger and make these adaptations, like they don't even have the protein backbone.
And there's a lot of stuff where I just have to think about like mitigating things that maybe they don't have to even think about. Like I just observed that like my leg you know, it flexes every time I land, which is probably fairly common. Like it probably kind of flexes, but mine specifically, like right here, goes boom like this every time I step. So I'm like, okay, can I step in some gentler way?
Yeah, you have to like untrain that.
Yeah, right. I got to kind of think of, because that's where I'll like cramp up. So if there wasn't any consequence to it, I probably wouldn't even think about it. But
that's like, think about all those years of power, right? It's like that was supposed to be super twitchy, right. Super responsive. Yep. Now it's like, can you stop?
Yeah, and stiff, right? Now it needs to be a little bit more like fluid and repetitive. So yeah. Those kinds of things. I got to watch my feet. I got to watch the shoes I'm wearing. I got to pay attention to every little.
Now you know. It's like you can untrain all those things, right? Like if you wanted to. Like if you wanted to be better at marathon running, it's like you can untrain it. But it's pretty cool though too. I mean,
get myself to like 210, 205, and then reassess from that body weight.
Yeah.
I don't really care that much about like marathons necessarily, but I do just want to be able to run 10 miles real easily, have it have no impact. And I'm not too far off from that, even at this body weight.
It's so different, comparatively speaking, to any other like bodybuilding prep, because they're all so focused on just fat loss and scale weight loss like all the time. And it's like, this is how you know progress is occurring. So when someone does something differently, where it's like, it doesn't actually matter, they lose their mind. But it's like, in order to play into that person's individual needs based on their biology or their genetics or all the things that they've trained for up to that point, it's different. And it's the same thing with you, you know, like it's just kind of think outside the box a little bit.
Yeah, like Kiara, my wife, you know, she's doing her first bodybuilding show. Dude, she started her prep at 164, you know, I don't know, 16 weeks ago-ish. And she's like 160 right now. It's like she didn't, you know, but it's like she wanted to grow and she wanted to get a lot leaner. It's like, it's not impossible, right? But we had to like tell her too, like, I need you to not worry about the scale, right? Like if you're heavy, that's okay. Like let's just, you know, we're gonna check pictures, we're gonna do all these things. She got fucking jacked, dude.
Yeah, she looks like a different person. Like just, he won't like be that descriptive, but like she, like Kiara was Kiara before, but it's like now it's like Kiara the fucking wellness competitor. It's crazy.
She's got
like
some massive legs.
Dude, she has to have put like 2 or 3 inches on her fucking glutes.
Yeah.
And her quads. It's
she was
crazy.
Just standing next to that other wellness girl. I can't remember what her name was. They took a picture together. She looked like a mini, like this tiny little girl next to her. Kiara looks huge. It's pretty cool though. It's like you can really make anything happen if you're really willing to, you know, assess the situation and be capable of actually like looking under the hood of your biology and saying like, this is actually what's wrong. We're not just gonna, you know, like with Kiara, for example, it's like you've done bodybuilding. It's like clan every day, right? And it's like T4 and whatever. It's like, you know, with Kiara, it's like we use clan like twice a week. It's like we didn't do it every day, right? It's like, what are you intentionally, like what does clan do? What am I trying to get out of it? And do I actually need it here or not, right?
20 weeks, something like that going into a show. And people wonder why so many people like rebound so hard coming out of the bodybuilding show or just end up quitting because it's so fucking miserable. I do love the prime equipment, like Mark was saying, because it's about, you can get like the force curve to be like, or the resistance profile to be like greater the deeper into the range of motion you go, or at like the far end. Yeah, the WEC board or the WEC deck. Yeah, that's what Mark has.
One of the things that Corey Schlesinger that we had here, he's a strength coach for the Phoenix Suns. He was talking about, like, he had me on here doing some squats with like a kettlebell. The kettlebell was kind of in between here, and I just hold it. But he really wanted to see, because like a lot of us, our foot is already, like if you see a lot of like power lifters, they're kind of rolled to the outside a bit anyway. So what he was advising me to do was to really get some pressure on that big toe and to actually like work on some pronation.
Yeah, come on, try that.
Which is kind of interesting, a little different than some other stuff I've kind of experienced. But he works with so many high-level basketball players and stuff. He was just saying like he's noticed that his guys, they always go from like kind of out here to this way off the big toe almost every time.
Everybody has their own way of like saying stuff and presenting information, and I don't really think like a lot of like you have to be really, really special to be like inherently wrong. But like you know, like the concept of rooting. Yeah. I think a lot of that like misses the mark because of stuff like this. Right. And that's why like I was really grateful to like talk to David to the level that I did a couple of years ago, Because like think about it, when you squat, like obviously we want like the 3 points of contact and to maintain like a really, really good arch. But if you have 1,000 pounds on your back, no one is ever going to be able to maintain their arch. Their foot's gonna flatten out to some degree. So if you can't achieve like a certain degree of pronation and pressure on like the middle of your foot with that tibial rotation, like why are you avoiding it? There's no reason to avoid it if it's going to be demanded of you when you have like a squat max. So why don't we train it with like sub-maximal load and get better at it so we can be prepared for it when we fucking max out?
I agree. I think actually some of the rooting stuff, it bounced around a bunch. Like I met Kelly Starrett like about 11 years ago or so, 12 years ago. And I went to him and I started talking about squatting and how to kind of get your feet planted into the ground. And I talked about like screwing your feet into the floor, which I kind of meant to do this way. And he was just like, holy shit. He's like, I've been saying something similar, but in a different way. And I think from there, other people kind of ran with the concept and talked about, you know, really trying to grip the floor with your feet and stuff like that. But for me, it was more like, you know, first of all, I squatted wide, I wore powerlifting equipment, but the main thing was to do exactly what you just said. I had to kind of push almost off the inside of the foot a little bit. Obviously, I didn't want to lift like this. Right? I'm not going to lift like that. But I had to control that because the main thing with a 1,000-pound plus squat is to be able to unrack it safely and to be able to unrack it under control. If I'm like on the balls of my feet or I'm anywhere else than like mid-foot, I'm gonna get destroyed. And there's things like leg drive and there's things like rooting. There's a bunch of stuff that I never knew anything about, and I just
you got there intuitively, you know.
Right. Yeah. You have to kind of figure it out because it's heavy.
Yeah, your body, athletes are intuitive.
Yeah, your body like starts to learn it, you know. But yeah, we were on here, and he was just having me kind of. I mean, you guys can do whatever you like on here, but I think even some stiff legs on here is pretty nice.
Or even doing like kettlebell swings.
Right. And we were just kind of going here. And you can feel the difference though. Like if you just kind of squat it, it's one thing, but if you really try to pinch the legs together and almost
get more adductor, and just pressure.
Get more adductor and get those toes down, big toe down.
See, and I don't have the WEC deck, but I have his the
steps.
Steps, yeah, steps or soles, yeah, sole steps.
He's a genius.
He's so smart, man. He's so fucking out there, but I love talking to the guy. And it's just playing around with like different foot pressure, like whatever you need to think of to get like different activation. Cause like there's the whole screwing the feet into the ground, but then it's like if you're in this position, I kind of think about like trying to pull these closer together, you know, but still allowing that external rotation at the hip. So just different stuff. It's easy these days with like the wealth of information and how much information is out there to get like lost in the sauce and start stepping over dollars to pick up pennies type thing, you know? Because think about all the biomechanics guys these days, like the angle of pull and like this is the same line of pull depending on like the cross-sectional area of the muscle. Then you have like a million dudes who are 160 pounds doing single arm lat pull downs with like a cross body emphasis, and it's like, do you really need that, or should you just do a barbell row, dog? And have a protein shake, because you'd probably get the same benefit.
When did you guys start training? When you were teenagers, pretty much?
Yeah, 12, 13.
Yeah, I was like 14.
It was mostly because I was bullied, and it was like, you just want to be stronger. And that's kind of how it started. And then I got into football, and that became an obsession, and yeah.
You know, now you can look at it and say, well, maybe lifting weights wasn't the solution to being bullied, because you were like, I would just do like MMA, like I would go and learn some jujitsu or something.
But when you're like 12, 13, it's like...
Yeah. And then back then too, like even just as of like 10 years ago, I don't think we were as informed about that style of training and fighting, that you knew that like you could, if a guy was, 50 pounds more, that you could take care of yourself and then some, right?
Right.
But we're just thinking like, I'm going to go in there and bench press.
Yeah, and then I'll be strong.
And I'm going to be strong.
Fuck that guy.
Yeah. It does work though. I mean, you're
going to
get
confidence too.
And I've never had anybody pick on me. I've always been pretty big.
I started because like, not necessarily because I was bullied, but because I hated myself, because I was like 300 pounds when I was 13. So I started to like lose weight because I wanted to get ready for high school football. And it was like, I'm super fat kid, I'm gonna be an offensive lineman, I need to be strong. So I just started doing that. Then I got lucky because there was a powerlifting club at my high school, so I got exposed to it and started when I was like 14, so just haven't ever stopped. But
do you get tightness in joints too, or just like?
The joints can get, they can get a little gnarly after like a long run, but typically no. Typically the joints are
more muscular,
a little bit okay. Although I guess at the moment, now you mentioned that they are a little. I've been doing a little bit more bodybuilding stuff the last couple weeks. And yeah, elbows, knees are good.
Yep.
My left hip has bothered me for a long time. Lower back and stuff's pretty good.
Yeah.
But yeah, just
funny thing is a lot of those pains usually are less from, training. It's more to do with it's being like a little bit too sympathetic, right? It's like most of the time just doing like, some meditative stuff is almost the best thing you can do for your mobility.
Yeah, just fucking figure out a way to relax. Yeah.
Really, I know it sounds silly, but it's like a lot of times people think they need a physical therapist to show them, how to get healthy. And it's like, dude, just literally get off your phone and do some meditative work and wear some toe spacers or something,
I've been doing more of that, and it has been.
Toe spacers are huge.
Oh, toe spacers are amazing. It's a great way to decompress the feet.
Absolutely. I literally have some in my backpack.
Toe spacers, lumbar traction, and being off your phone.
Yeah.
That's the best way to feel good, honestly.
I feel it's really interesting because most of us are working on so many things.
Right.
I know.
And then the phone takes you all the places that you're teaching yourself not to go to during the rest of the day. You're trying to be stoic, you're trying to be this, trying to be that, trying not to be judgmental, trying to worry about what the fuck anybody else is doing, try not to be overly obsessed with yourself and what you're doing.
Yep.
And the internet is like the most narcissistic spot.
And it's one of the most beneficial things too, because like think about all of our incomes, all of our businesses, it's built around that. All the people that we like, the reason we know one another, like the reason I know Jake, there's so many positives to it, but it's so easy to think about it, the positives. Yeah, I know. And then just fall into that hole where it's like fucking doom scrolling. It's like, fuck that guy.
It's addicting.
That's cool. Fuck that guy.
There needs to be like a hate button.
Yeah, seriously.
That would definitely solve a lot of problems.
I finally figured
Why
out.
the fuck did Joe hit the hate button?
Like, well, I thought we were cool.
Yeah, what the hell?
Yeah.
Joe Sullivan hit the hate button. Like, what the fuck?
It'd be even better if it was an anonymous hate button.
Oh yeah.
So like, who did that?
Like, well, they took the dislike button off YouTube or whatever.
Oh, really?
So yeah, that used to be a big thing. So I don't know.
I guess the guy that made the like button didn't really understand that. Like, if people didn't hit the like button, it meant they didn't like it.
Right. Yeah.
Like, he didn't know that. He's like, I didn't know people were going to think that way. Do you guys maybe not care so much about whether there's crossover of upper body, lower body, or it just depends?
That's a really good question.
Because now
totally
it's like the workout today sounds a little random, I would say,
Oh,
in
it's
comparison
absolutely.
to what you're used to for most splits.
And this
Today's
is-
triceps and hamstrings.
Yep, so we would call this more of what I would call a substrate day. It's like we had low rest on a bench press, right? So we didn't have a chance to make things alactic. So meaning like you don't have a chance to recycle these creatine phosphate bonds, right? So you're not able to use creatine. So everything we do today is paid for by glucose.
You hear that, you fucking cheaters? You're not allowed to use creatine. Cheating
exactly.
motherfuckers.
But that's the point, right? It's like today, it's like you obviously can never have like a 100 or a 0. Like nothing's ever going to be paid for completely by like creatine or glucose or fatty acids. But we want to bias it towards glucose today, right? And today's what we call kind of a glycolytic substrate day. So yeah, it includes many.
Maybe easier said, a little bit of a pump day, or maybe
Exactly.
A pump day, I would say, would be just a little bit more like really, really high rep, maybe a little longer rest time too. It's like getting a ton of blood volume to the area, right?
It's like the meathead pump day, where it's like short rest, like just short rest, like high demand, but not like there's no like strength. Here. It's just
the thing that matters to me is like, is there lactate or is there not, right? It's like a very black or white, like is there or not? And today's like a very high lactate day. It's like, short rest time. That's why we're supersetting almost everything.
And for somebody who's listening, that means like being just before the range of motion or like level of strain where it's like you're gonna burn. Like it's just a step before that.
Here, instead of that guy, use this.
All right, you got it.
It gives it a slightly different feel. It's hard to describe. I think sometimes I show this.
It is shaky though. I like that.
I show some of the stuff on the internet sometimes, and I think people are just like, "Oh, there's another gimmick." And
Yeah,
you just tried it.
Yeah. Sure, it is. Like, yeah, it's just another thing, but like if you try it, you'll probably want to buy it.
They're like, "Oh, great, you love money." It's like, yeah.
It's like, yes. That's why I keep coming out with products, and you guys keep buying them. So thank you. Ooh, I do like this. See, this just like forces you to slow down a little bit. And I'm the type of guy where it's like, if it's gonna benefit my training, benefit my life in any way, it doesn't matter how much it costs.
It almost forces you to have a longer time under tension. It's perfect for these kind of substrate days.
You can even try a little, like, if you mess with it a bit as you're going, you know, you oscillate it a little bit on purpose, or you just try to find spots to hold, especially once you fatigue. Or you can try to like make this thing like move around a ton.
Yeah.
And then you can try to slow it back down. Yeah, there's a bunch of different stuff you can do with it.
It's pretty sweet.
It's got to be great for athletes, you know. Like take a.
I guarantee you, Kiara would love this.
Yeah, well, think about it's like the purpose of like a bamboo bar. You know, you could do the same thing, like dual hook these and then do like a cable press or something. It's the same thing.
My sleep has gotten a lot better. My sleep was. I still wake up a bunch, but I'm able to go back to bed a little easier than I was before.
You used to have a hard time falling asleep typically?
No, I used to just wake up a lot and then just like kind of be up.
You're just like that random
catacomb
dump in the middle of the night?
Yeah, I just for whatever reason, I don't really like going to bed.
No, I get it. That's something I struggle with too.
Yeah, but I learned that I have like windows of time. So if I think about going to bed like really early, it actually can work for me pretty good. The main problem I would run into is I kind of like to go to bed at like 11, but I also like to be up at like 5 or 6. So those two things don't go together, you know?
Right.
So I have to think about bed around 8 o'clock, be to bed 8:39 or so, and then
I always start my rituals around 8, try to be asleep by like 9:30, and then I'm like you, I don't need an alarm, I'll be up at 5:30 no matter what. Yeah. Sometimes though,
I've been that way for a long time. Even like when I was in high school,
same. Yeah.
I would wake up, 2 hours before school and go like work out in my basement.
Yeah. No, literally the same thing. I've never been able to sleep in, ever.
Yeah. If I do sleep in, it's like 6:30 or 7. You know, it's like oh, I did great today. You know,
it drives my wife crazy because we were even on our honeymoon. I was like, cool, we can sleep in, and I was up at like 5. Okay, we're in the Bahamas, so I'm like, I'm just gonna wander around for a little bit until you wake up. But I like it. I like being up early. It feels good. But those are those DHTs getting you up, you know. Have you ever tried anything like doing some like hot yoga or like some kind of hot therapy?
Yeah, you know, I was doing some yoga for a little while. I have access to like a sauna and some different things. Hot tub helps me a lot.
Yeah,
I have a hot tub. Yoga was kind of funny because like I would come from here and I'd go to yoga and I'd like, bench like 500 for reps or something, and then I would go over there. So it was a few years ago, but yeah, I need to probably do it in a more of a relaxed state because I was too amped up coming from like lifting, you know?
Yeah, now you're gonna get this like super vigilant, sympathetic response from it, right? Because you're still like super amped up from training.
That stuff does help though, and I enjoy all that.
Yeah, like doing like some sauna plus like journaling would probably be a good combo. I have to do some kind of, like before I go to bed, I always have to sit outside and do some journaling, and that helps me quite a bit. Dude, mindfulness is the key. I mean, you can even make some mindfulness happen while you're like warming up sometimes or cooling down, right?
Yeah, I was listening to Jerry Seinfeld. He was on Howard Stern. He said everything to him is like a bit. Everything is for comedy. And he's like, even right now, I'm not really present right now. He's like, I'm thinking of a good joke, or thinking of like what's funny about the situation today. And you know, Howard Stern is funny because he always kind of plays like the lovable loser. It's like he's a millionaire a million times over himself, right? And he's like, that sounds like a horrible existence, you know, to just be thinking of that all the time. And Jerry Seinfeld was like, he's like, that's the way it is for me. He's like, I'm just thinking all the time of, and then he's like, oh, you're just always thinking of work? He's like, yeah.
A lot of the times, like, people don't look at it as work. Right. It's just who they are, you know? With the whole, like, getting way too into the minutia, it's easy to get lost in the sauce. And then it's like all you think about ever, and it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, you forgot about the doing.
Yeah.
The doing is what got you there.
Yeah.
Not the just thinking about it's not enough.
Speaking of substrate days, this is like very showcasing how little of this particular substrate I have, because I'm just coming off of a peak. So any fucking repetitions on anything is brutal. Ugh.
I've worked with NFL guys, I've worked with coaches on pretty much every level. I mean, there's sports I haven't hit, but Andy really stands out. He's very, very exceptional.
He's just so smart, but he's so, for the general individual, it's so hard to digest sometimes. Because like the first couple of conversations that I had with Andy, I was like, I don't know what the fuck.
Simple for him.
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
Simple for him. He reminds me a lot of Joel Green. Have you guys heard of Joel Green before? Joel talks a lot about like feeding your gut, the gut back, you know, the bacteria in the gut, and like prebiotic fibers and all these different things. And he talks more about like that kind of stuff than he does like calories in, calories out type thing. But he's always kind of like talking like way up here, so you don't really know. Sometimes it's hard to tell what he's talking about. But you can mention something pretty serious to him, and he'll be like, "Oh, this will solve that," and you're like, "Is that simple? Can it be that simple?" And he's like, "Yeah." So he got a lot of different protocols. I mean, he also will. I guess his main specialty is he does a lot of things to offset other things, and he does so via food usually. More recently, he was talking about like alpha ketoglutarate, AKG, and like what that does. And he just gets on like these little kicks, and he puts out some different stuff on social media about it.
Most of the time, even with the most serious issues, they are simple fixes. It's like they're really, like, sometimes it seems like there must be something really crazy wrong. And it's like it's really not, you know. If you can really be able to diagnose what's going on.
Personal anecdote, like my nerve stuff, my neck stuff, my arm stuff. Like I spent tens of thousands of dollars, years and years and years, like 5-6 years, trying to figure out like what the hell was wrong, what like physiologically was wrong. And then after talking to Jake and him being like, I can fix you, and me being like, I'm desperate enough to listen, it took like six months, 9 months. Yeah, and it was like, just change the diet, change the lifestyle, change the approach to training.
You didn't need some fancy surgery.
No.
Most of the time, I think probably 90% of, or more, the pharmaceutical drugs out there are completely unnecessary. It's usually pretty simple.
But the hard part is getting a person to the point where they're willing to do every single thing to a T to fix it. And the only person that's going to be in a position like that is either someone who cares enough to do it, or someone who's desperate enough to do it. And I was both of those things. But there are a lot of people where it's like, oh, my nerve's fucked up, I can't make this happen. And then you tell them, oh, well, you can't have any caffeine, you can't train this way, you can't train the normal way that you want to. You need to reevaluate the way that you approach training, the way that you approach mindset, the way that you approach relaxation, everything in your life, and we'll fix you in 6 months. But you tell that to someone who works a 9-to-5 job, who has 3 kids, who has debt, and is smoking cigarettes for the past 10 years and whatever, and it's like, it's hard for a lot of people.
At Jesse Burdick's gym like 6 years ago or so, you were, I'd say you were way more amped up.
Yeah.
You were a different person, I think, even though I didn't know you that well then.
I was very much, just for lack of a better word, like I was very much more immature. back then, you know, and very.
You're also like, you know, you're at a younger age and you're like,
Yeah.
trying to stand your ground, trying to fight for a piece
Be one of the guys.
of the pie, and then as you get older, you realize like there's plenty of pie to go around for everybody. You just need to fucking calm down.
Exactly. You know? and that's the thing. That was my approach for so long. It was like the only tool that I had was a hammer, so everything looked like a nail. And then I just ended up beating the shit out of everything when it would have made much more sense to just back off and be like, okay, rather than using this particular tool that I've used for everything, why don't we reevaluate how we're approaching this? And that's why I was saying to Ryan in the camera like earlier, I feel like a new lifter again. I feel like I'm getting like noob gains just because of how differently I've approached everything with Jake's help. So it's exciting.
There's so much stuff that we haven't even tapped into yet with like human performance too. Like if you really get these guys like Andy, and like I don't want to put myself up with Andy, but like he like you can push this stuff so much further. Like no one's tapped into this stuff. Like if you really get these guys and to get into, you know, these big sports, we're gonna see things go crazy, because there's a lot of stuff that's like they don't include steroids. You know, it's like everyone wants to think steroids, but it's like, what do steroids actually do, right? And how, like, they're so easy to mimic. Like steroids are not complicated drugs at all. It's like they're usually some kind of protein expression plus 1 or 2 benefits depending on what steroid it is, right? It's like, well, how can I replicate that? It's like, man, you can replicate anything with some super simple stuff.
Right. Increasing like protein synthesis. I mean, you could do that through lifting.
Yeah, and
you
it's
can
like,
do it through eating protein, right? I mean, there's like some ways you can stimulate it.
Again, personal anecdote, but it makes sense here. Like back in 2016, 2017, I was taking advice from everyone who was at the top, and it was just like, oh, more is better, like gram of gear here, gram of gear there. And now past
1,000 pound total, 2 grams.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. You know, and it's like, but now it's like what the most I've run in the past 3 years has been like a 400 test. And then additional like just little like the little like DHT little neurological stuff prior to a meet to like get me a little bit more pushing, like a Trina Masteron, a Primo, something like that.
For like a couple weeks.
But like a couple of weeks, like 4 to 6 weeks, and that's it. And I'm just so much more healthy, but it's because of the knowledge of not necessarily leaning into the androgens and being like, okay, there are a lot of other options here that you can mimic their effects, but not get all the bad shit that comes along with them. So
like Kiara's whole prep, we build all this tissue. We didn't use an Anavar, we didn't use a Winstrol. It's like we barely used anything at all. It's like the only thing we really leaned into is carnosine growth insulin. It's like, man, you know, no one will believe that, but it's like, it's the truth, you know? It's like you can do so many cool things with that. If you time out your diet, you time out the way you train. Like training has a huge part. It's not just random training. It's like, you know, what are we trying to do, and what are we trying to express in this training, right? Like, you know, we have like these little creatine days. Creatine days do a lot of cool things. Like what is that going to do over the next 24 to 48 hours physiologically, and how can I take advantage of that so it's always just
compounding.
You know, compounding.
The only way that you can get like the compound interest and have everything build on top of one another is how far you're willing to devote yourself to it. Because like how you said earlier, it's like it's simple to fix most things, and it is simple on paper, but in the actual application it's really difficult for a lot of people. Because like I follow a meal plan. Like it's like a bodybuilding oriented meal plan where it's like this specific thing at this time every day. This is my training day, this is my non-training day. And there's a reason so much of this stuff works so well for me and anyone who follows it to that level of adherence. But it's one of those things where it has to be damn near 100% adherence, or else you're not going to get the effects that you're looking for.
I only got 3 sessions in this week. It's like, well, you're gonna have 3 session results. Like,
yeah, and it's like not only that, but it's like you kind of miss this, like you're out of the groove now, right?
Yeah.
Like because there are even times like as a bodybuilder where, you know, I think this is where you can kind of get it wrong in bodybuilding. It's like more food is better, right, if you want to grow. And it's like actually having times where you're fasting is actually going to help your muscle growth, right? It's like, it's not just eat more food, more growth. It's like, well, you know, if you always just do like glycolytic training, right, this high rep stuff, you're going to build up so many acetyl groups out of your muscle tissue. It's like nothing gets in anymore, right? And all of a sudden, like you see it all the time where people miss at you know, on the show day, and they look kind of watery and spilled over, and all they've been doing is pump work all week. It's It's like, dude, just do a creatine day, take a little insulin, you'll be good to go. But they'll be like, oh, this insulin, it's not working anymore. It's like, you literally just need to go do a creatine day and you'll be fine.
Because like, think about what you just said, Mark, about how like when you run a certain distance, your legs blow up. You feel like puffy and inflamed. It's the same outcome just from a different stimulus, because those people are doing this thing where it's like, okay, high reps, but they're on the heaviest doses they're going to be on. They're the most like amped up that they're going to be, and they're the leanest that they're going to be. So they're going to elicit so much damage to their tissue. And it's like, of course you're going to have this inflammatory response. So like doing something as simple as like just throwing a medicine ball back and forth, or like a couple of bike sprints and push-ups, you're going to dump a lot of that subcutaneous water, get rid of a lot of that inflammation, and look way leaner than you ever could. So
even like with that, like this holding water thing too, it's like, well, you know, why am I holding water, right? It's like, well, whose job is it to clear out that water? It's like most people kind of lean into kidneys. It's like, okay, why is the kidney not cleaning this out? The other part is like your hypothalamus, right? It's like, why does your hypothalamus not cleaning that out too? Like maybe you really just need like a, you know, you have to push the seesaw the other way and just be more parasympathetic for a little bit, and all of a sudden that water just comes off. It's like kind of how we did his water cut protocol.
We did my water cut for this past meet. I went from 240 to 220 as per usual, but we didn't manipulate water or sodium whatsoever. We didn't lean into like the kidney avenue at all. It was all through the hypothalamus and like essentially how relaxed I could get the entire week leading up. And it's like I was super skeptical, but like obviously Jake has not led me astray, and he was like, I have this idea, let's do it. And I'm like, okay, let's fucking try it, you know?
Just doing like, you know, cryotherapy and
yeah, cryotherapy every day, like literally off my phone completely, listening to like white noise all day, trying to be as relaxed as possible. And you can see it on I have like these daily check-ins, and it's like I went from 244 to like 242 to 238 to 236 to 233 to 230, and then I sweat off 10 pounds and made 220. And without any manipulation of like water loading, sodium loading, carb manipulation, or anything. So my meet performance was incredible because there was like zero impact to my performance because there was zero systemic stress.
So sweating the weight off quickly gets you kind of in and out of that.
Exactly.
Without getting banged up, right? Without getting fucked up.
Yeah, I felt it worked so well, and I'm so glad we did it, because it sets us, like the big meet is coming up in October, because it sets us up so well, because now we know like all the day, like how I'm going to react, what the timing is going to be like, and how well it's going to work. Because I felt as if like I weighed in on Friday morning. It's 24-hour powerlifting weigh-in, so you weigh in on Friday, don't compete until Saturday morning. But I weighed in on Friday morning, and I felt like I could lift Friday afternoon. Like I felt amazing. So it was very, very cool. So very happy we did that.